So why are we here today? We want to learn and understand, of course, why an LMS and HR system fall short without skills management software like AG5 in between, and how we can make sure that you get the most out of your skills management. A few words to myself. My name is Stefan. I'm from Germany originally. You might hear it on my accent. I'm an onboarding specialist here at AG5, which means I will take new customers by the hand and make sure that all their data is in the system, that they know how AG5 works, and that everybody can get the most out of AG5 for themselves. I do have experience in the past a lot with customer-facing trainings, so I'm really looking forward to this session. And this is what you can expect. We will have 30 minutes data that we will share. We will have stuff we want to talk about. Afterwards, we have a 15-minute Q&A. Might be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending, of course, on the questions that are coming in. And as previously mentioned, you can ask your questions throughout the whole session. If we have the time, we will answer them all. Otherwise, you're going to get them in an email. But before we start, I'm super curious to hear, of course, how are you currently managing your skills, and how are you making sure that all your employees are compliant with the training requirements? Are you using Excel or an HRM system or an LMS, or maybe a combination of both? Just vote for it and let me know what you're currently using. So what will you learn by the end of the session? You can see here on the right side, we have a lot of data coming in from different systems. There's an HR system, an LMS. There's different workforce planning. And of course, we have Excel data that's coming in. And we want to make sure that something like AG5 sits in between to bring order to the chaos and to make sure that all your skills management needs are met. And yeah, so I'm going to show you how AG5 can improve. The agenda for the session today, the topics that we're going to talk about, you can see here. First, of course, we want to make sure that we all are on the same page. What even is a skills management system? What is an LMS and what is an HRM? Then we're going to have a look at how those systems work with different situations and departments. What's happening if there's a shared goal, but there's no alignment between those different departments? And why do most of the organizations still use Excel on the side? And this is something that we can see here in AG5 in the onboarding, that pretty much every client that is coming in has data in Excel. And of course, you want to make sure that this is a thing of the past. And yeah, so how can AG5 bring this all together and make your life easier? Afterwards, we do have time to have a look at a live demo of the system. So we're going to show you around a little bit in AG5, and then we're going to have the Q&A session. AG5, what is our main mission before we jump into the topic? Our main mission is to sum it up, of course, make your life easier. We want to make sure that your skills management is easier and that you can analyze skill gaps on time, that you can visualize skill gaps on time, that you can plan, and then you can make sure that you're 100% compliant, that everybody is trained and knows what they're doing in the end. And why do an LMS and an HRM system fall short without something like AG5 in between? As mentioned, we want to make sure that we're all on the same base. So what does an LMS even do in the first place in an HRM? On an LMS, it's a learning management system. You have a collection of different e-learning courses. You have a collection of different maybe certificates that you can achieve on there. But what the problem is on this side is that it lacks the clear overview of all the skills and all the requirements that your organization might have. It's more like a standardized catalog for all the different trainings that are existing, but it cannot take into account a little bit more the custom quirks that every company and every organization has. Different departments might have different requirements. There's on the machine training, there are different things you need to take into account, and that can an LMS most of the time not really do. An HRM, on the other hand, comes from an HR perspective. Of course, it's in the name. So what we can find in here is mostly data related to the human resources part of the of the organization. For example, what job role a specific employee has, what is he employed to do. But then we also want to see that there's maybe a growth path in place. So those are data streams that are coming in from an HR system that you cannot see in an LMS. So this would mean that somebody already needs to touch two different systems to get the data for one employee, which of course is not handy. And something like AG5, we are specialized in sitting in the middle. You can see it here on the right side of the graphic. We're bridging the gap between those two systems. We're going to put all those different data streams that are coming in. We organize it for you, and we make it easier for everybody involved to keep track of who needs to be trained in what. Here we can also see what AG5 does really, really well, and that an LMS and an HRM just can't do, because in an LMS or HRM system, you cannot analyze current skill gaps easily. What you also cannot do, you cannot predict the future. So you cannot say, hey, maybe in half a year, how does my workforce look by then? Is training running out? Do we have maybe a specific project coming up? Who needs to be trained in what? So those are all stuff, all things that you cannot really plan in an LMS or in an HR system. And that's where AG5 just shines, because that's all we can do. We can get the data, we can connect it to your employee and to your job role, to your machine process, depending what you would want to do. And we can make sure that everybody is trained and compliant. So let's have a look how an LMS and an HR system work in different departments and the different situations that can arise. First, of course, if we do have a shared goal, but there's no alignment, which on first glance makes a nice view, because, oh yeah, okay, we have a shared goal. Of course, the shared goal is every employee needs to be trained in the process that they're assigned to do. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because you can see here on the right side, we might have all on top from an LMS and from an HR system coming in generic courses like a safety training, first aid responder. We have HR requirements like company culture, onboarding, all that kinds of stuff. But then, of course, what is really important and what really is needed is the training from the different departments regarding machines, processes. Then maybe if it's an international company, for our global players here in the call, different regulations coming from different companies. Then maybe we also have specific machines or product lines only locally in some locations and not in all. So there needs to be able to customize this all a little bit more. And yeah, so this is something that you cannot easily do with only an LMS and only an HR system. If you check, for example, our colleague here, let's call him Thomas. He's a maintenance engineer working in Amsterdam. So what would the QHSE approach for that employee be? What do they expect them to be trained in? Of course, you want to make sure that that Thomas knows about all of the safety issues, that he knows, for example, the different hazardous energy controls, based on different regulations coming in from different regulatory bodies, depending on which country he is, for example. And how can this department make sure that he is trained with an LMS system? Of course, right? They can assign basic trainings to them, but then that's already starting where it's a little bit more customized, that departments most of the times start using Excel sheets. So Thomas needs to be trained in something specific, because maybe his safety regulation applies to a specific machine that he's assigned to do. They need to be able to define skills and trainings based maybe on the job role, but not only the job role, but also in combination with a different machine, right? So this can all get super messy, very easy. And that's why most of the companies do use Excel sheets to substitute the LMS system. If you have a look at an R&D department, what would they expect from the maintenance engineer, Thomas? They want to make sure that, of course, he's certified, that they know what process they need to follow through. They need to be able to identify the training needs for them, also based on the job role. They can sign them up for different courses and certificates on the LMS platform. But then, same as previously, they're going to start using Excel sheets because they want to make sure that Thomas is trained properly in maybe some specifics that are not covered by the more generic overarching LMS system. They want to make sure that their courses set into place tailored specifically for Thomas in his specialization, for his job role, and for the specific products he's involved. Coming from an HR perspective, then they, of course, you can see it here in the bottom right corner, you can see that they're going to touch probably most of the systems because they want to not only make sure that he's assigned the specific trainings regarding the job that he's participating in, but they also want to feed data into the system from an HR perspective. So what job role does he have? Is there a career path in place, a growth path for the employee? If an employee, for example, is a little bit more involved and has a clear perspective of their own possible growth in the company, make sure that there's not such a high turnover in your workforce, which of course, if there's no turnover, makes for on the long term better trained and more involved and a more loyal employees, right? Which of course is a big advantage nowadays. So yeah, so HR would be sending data via LMS, via HRM, and then of course they also would use the Excel sheets simply because it's so much easier to keep track of and to have it a little bit more customized than to always touch the big tools. And last but not least, of course, we want to have a look at the typical operations and production department, what their approach would be regarding a new employee. They want to make sure that Thomas is assigned to the specific trainings, to the specific SOPs, that he understands the safety and compliance issues regarding his process or his specific task. So this is data that they can use the LMS for. But then, of course, maybe we want to cross-train our maintenance engineer a little bit to also take over some tasks from a different process or a different machine where they're not really assigned to officially, but you know how it is in a team. Somebody might be a little bit, might be sick and falling out, and then somebody needs to jump in. So this cross-department training is just not easily done in an LMS, in a LMS and HR structure, because there's no communication easy in between. Yeah, so and this is already what we can see here a little bit, where the shared goal is, and we have overlapping request for overlapping requirement of training compliances, which is difficult to see because most of the time departments work in silos and there's not an easy way to share data in between. Yeah, and I pointed out already in the slides before, so why do actually a lot of the current organizations still use Excel sheets with their systems? It's simply, it's as simple as that, because people want to be able to customize easy and quickly the skills management system, which of course then leads to the fact that we have different departments all using different Excel sheets, which means it's super difficult to have a clear overview what training an employee ultimately has. Everybody is putting some data and getting some data via an LMS. Some data might be coming in via an HR system. But most of the time, there are some Excel sheets floating around between departments. Then maybe the manager says, hey, how's the current training for the workforce for my whole department? And then all of a sudden, all the team leads are struggling and pulling up all the Excel sheets. And then, of course, good luck going through all of them. So this is something that here is pointed out at the bottom part, of course. Excel sheets just lead to inefficiencies and most of the time also to issues and to mistakes, right? As easy as it is. The Excel sheets are just prone for user errors, that somebody's adding some data not correctly, and then it's just super messy. Yeah, so to sum it all up, what are the gaps for an LMS and an HRM system? Yeah, for an HRM system. We do not have any centralized source of truth, because there's some data coming from the LMS, there's some data in the HR system, and there's even more data floating around in all kinds of Excel sheets. As mentioned before, if somebody wants to have a clear overview over the whole department, over maybe the whole company even, what's going to happen? Everybody is going crazy and trying to find the data on different places. There's also now dynamic skill gap analysis. And what do we mean by this? If you have the ability to immediately see where do we have skill gaps and where do we need to train our workforce, makes your resource management just so much easier. Because why setting up a training today for 2 people when you already know for the same training in 2 weeks, 5 more people would be needing a retraining? Why don't you just put it all together to make it more cost efficient? And this is something, of course, you cannot do if you have so many different systems in place and so many different Excel sheets flying around. You also do not have an automation for compliance and recertification tracking. And this sounds a little bit, sounds like a lot. However, what it is, when is my training running out? When is my certification running out? How do I even keep track of this? Is there someone or something that tells me, hey, Stefan, your training is about to run out. Please make sure you will be retrained. This is something that an LMS or an HR system might be able to do, but an Excel sheet cannot do that for sure. So we need to have a system in place that takes this task and take this burden away from the manager, from the admin, from whoever is in charge of the skill management to make sure that there's keep track of. So somebody knows when we need to be retrained. And that somebody in this case would be AG5. There's also no real-time reporting. So if the executive is coming and say, hey, I want to see what the whole department, how are they trained right now? Wouldn't it be just amazing for you to say, hey, let's look together. You have 1 or 2 clicks, and then all of a sudden you can show them a graph where you can see how the training were going through the last couple of weeks or months. How did the compliance change? It would make your life so much easier, and then of course the person who is requesting the data also, because they don't have to wait forever. And we can make sure that the data entered into the system is all a streamlined process and everybody knows what to do. Same goes then here for future proofing or for your workforce planning. We already touched that subject a little bit earlier. If you do not have a dynamic skill gap analysis, you cannot predict what's going to happen in the future. If you don't have something in place that can track for how long a training is valid and when it's going to run out in a couple of weeks or months, you cannot probably plan your workforce. Let's say you have a project coming up in half a year or an audit. Everybody knows audits are happening all the time. You need to have a system where you can say, hey, how does my workforce look maybe in 3 months or in half a year? How much do I need to retrain? Who needs to be recertified in something specific? And yeah, this is something that AG5 can do for you. You can look into the future to see how does my workforce develop over time, and where do we need to train someone to make sure that we're staying compliant. And yeah, so AG5 pulls this all together. It makes sure that there's a standardized way to enter data into the system, so everybody's using the same platform. It's unified. We have one source of truth for all departments where they can log in. And of course, you can limit the access. You can say not every department needs to see everything. You can adjust this and to make sure that the people who need to see data can see it. You can, however, make sure that there's a seamless collaboration possible between the departments. So if you say you have a trainings admin for a specific department, and then they can maybe reach out to different departments and say, hey, we're going to have safety training coming up next week. Do you maybe have some people from your department who want to join, because we have still 3 spots left? That would be super great and easy to do. Streamlined processes. I mentioned that we have a streamlined unified platform. That means everybody knows what to do. Makes just everybody's life so much easier. There's no second guessing, hey, which course is this one? Which employee is this? Is there maybe a employee name shortened or something, right? So everybody uses the same data, everybody uses the same platform. It's just so much more efficient for everybody involved. And last part here, clear visibility. Yeah. So if I have a look at the system, I don't need to second guess, hey, what is going on here? Because I already know from my own department how AG5 works, how the graphs work, how the employee portfolio page looks, right? So I know how the data looks, so it also makes it easier for everybody involved to interpret data, even if it's not your own. And to make your life even easier, is AG5 can integrate with a lot of different software, and which means from an LMS, for example, we can pull content from there. With content, I mean the names of courses, for example, and then you can go and say, hey, the Thomas, the colleague that we looked up a little bit earlier, he's a maintenance engineer. What courses do we attach to being a maintenance engineer? So what AG5 then does is pulling the training from the LMS system to AG5 and automatically assigns them to them and sends the data back to the LMS. So the LMS system knows where people are rolled in, which courses. Same place for the HR system. So if your HR admin creates an employee in the HR system, the data then will be running automatically to AG5. So you don't need to keep track of multiple systems because AG5 gets everything automatically. So with this being said, we're going to jump into the live demo. And what are we going to see in the live demo? I'm going to show you how, as an operational manager, how you can keep track of your team's production skills, how you can see who needs to be retrained and when do they need to be trained, right? So we're going to play around most of the time within a matrix. Then, of course, you also want to see how over time you want to get insights and reports. You want to see, hey, how did this develop over time? But then at the same, you want to make sure that as a higher up, how can they interpret the data? How can say the data if it's maybe not only for a specific shift, but for maybe a whole department or even the whole company? So this is what we're going to look at together in the demo here. And let's jump right in. So for the participants today who have not seen AG5 live yet, if you log into AG5, this is your main view. You have here on the top part your different tabs where you can manage the content of your system. You can add the employees, you can create your skills library, and add your skills. And under the organizational tab, you can actually create different libraries that are important for you. You can also create different organizational structures. So if you say, hey, I want to assign, for example, roles based on, or I want to assign requirements for specific trainings based on job roles, based on processes or machines that you assign people to. This is something you can build in your org structure, and this is, of course, highly customizable for you, depending on what you need. So with this being said, let's jump into our first shift. First matrix with Shift B for mechanical engineering. I click on this one, and then I can already see here on top the different skills. And I can see on the left side the different employees and my team lead. If for whatever reason you say, oh, I want to change it around, you can also turn it around that you have the skills on the left side and the employees on the top side. You can make it a little bit bigger and a little bit smaller to make sure that you have the best view for you. In this case, I like it if the employee is on the left side and I have the skills on top. I can see here the different trainings that are coming in. I can see that we have different libraries, categories here, so which are HR trainings, which are operational ones. We have something coming in from the QHSE department and from the R&D department. Here on the left, I can see my team. And then if we share that matrix, for example, with Marvin, then he would be, as the team lead, able to see in AG5 everything related to his team. So this is already a really nice way to customize the view for the team lead here. So, and if we deep dive into the content of the matrix a little bit, we can, for example, see that Tyler, he needs to be trained here because there's a skill gap for workplace incident reporting. Logan, for example, is currently still trained in pipeline and storage tank safety. However, we have this yellow bell icon that means, hey, be aware, Marvin, because I'm as a manager, I'm looking at it, be aware that Logan's certification for this specific training is about to run out. And if I click on it, I can see it's expiring soon. And the result, he was added in September, and it's valid until March this year. And then we can actually put something into place that would send out, for example, an email either to Logan as the employee or maybe to the manager, depending what would work for you. As a reminder, please, there's something running out. Please take care and take action of this. So this is a super and easy way for me to keep track of my employees. If an employee is trained, I can just click on it. I can add a result. I can upload a certificate if I want to, and the result that was achieved, and then I can click on save. And now we already added a result for Logan. We also have apps, mobile apps. So if you, for example, have something on the floor and you have, let's say, an iPad available, then you can even add an e-signature right away, or you can make pictures of specific certificates or information to upload for that specific result. And if you go back to the matrix, then if you want to look in one higher up, for example, we can have here the look for the overview for the whole mechanical engineering department. And here we can see all the trainings, and here we can see the different department areas. We have the engineering area, and we have the maintenance area. So this will be already for one higher up. And then if we go back for the whole company, we can also do the same, right? So it's depending what kind of matrix you want to build. And there I can see the whole company. I can see all the different departments. I can see my shifts here and all my skill results that are added to the system. So this is a really nice view for different positions. You can make sure that everybody sees the data they need. You can also decide who is able, of course, to add results in the matrix. You can only give him viewing rights, or you can also say, no, I want to be able that the employee, for example, can add data in the matrix if you want to share it with them, or that the manager can add data, but you want to have an approval process in place. So that's also a possibility, of course. But yeah, so a matrix as this might be a little bit confusing for somebody who is not able to work with AG5 on a day-to-day basis. So what we can do in this case, we can also open this whole matrix in a specific graph. I can click on view insights, and let's see, we're going to update this one real quick. And then you can actually see over time, how did the compliance change? How many results were added over time, right? So here we have a period of the last 2 months for the specific matrix that we can see. And this is an easy way for the department head to say, hey, how did my compliance change over time? How many problems did we have? And a problem in this case means that there is a requirement set into place that's just not met, right? So if I say, hey, Thomas, our maintenance engineer, needs to be trained in a specific skill, and he is not trained, then that's a problem. So, and this is something that's shown here in the system. I can also, of course, say, hey, I want to have a look in a different matrix. So this is now the overview for the whole mechanical engineering department. We can see that the problems changed. If I want to, I could also have a look at the whole company as a whole. Yeah, so this is the feature to make sure that the reporting is only 1 or 2 clicks away, and to make sure that also the exchange of information can easily be done, even across the departments, right? So what you could do, for example, and that's something that happens a lot actually during our onboarding, that we say, okay, the head of department for the mechanical engineering, he has editing rights for that specific matrix, but other heads of other departments have maybe only viewing rights for a matrix. So they could still have a look, hey, what's going on over there with my colleague, with the other department, but I cannot mess up their data because I'm not involved in the training. Yes, so let's jump back into our presentation. So we touched a little bit already. What about integrating AG5 with other systems? We saw this graph in the beginning. AG5 is just really shining. in making order out of the chaos that skills management can be sometimes. We can automatically sync with different departments. We can automatically, with different software solutions, we can automatically enroll employees into your LMS system for specific trainings. So this just makes your life so much easier, because you can say, let's say in AG5, I'm going to build an org structure based on job roles. And I say every mechanical engineer that's coming in has to be trained in specific courses in the LMS system. So me as an HR admin then maybe creates the employee Thomas as a mechanical engineering. This data from the HR system gets synced into AG5. Then AG5 sees, hey, we have into place the assignment of the courses for mechanical engineering. So we send the data to the LMS system. We catch it back from there to make sure that the trainings are all in here. And once the employee finishes the training in the LMS system, it will also send the data back to AG5 to change this skill gap in a green check mark, because now Hunter will be trained as in production line A. Same goes for the compliance data if you want to use. Same goes for your data visualization. So if you want to have a little bit more insight than what AG5 is currently offering, then of course you can always attach different reporting tools to the system. And yes, to sum this all up, we can revisit the slide from the beginning, where we ask us all the questions why LMS and HRM systems cannot really ensure the trainings compliance just by itself. It's because an LMS system and an HR system, an LMS and an HR system do not give you the opportunity to have a look at the current skill gaps. You cannot predict the future to make sure that your resources are well spent. You cannot see if an audit is coming up anytime soon, and how will my workforce be compliant, how much. You will also have less of a problem with employee turnover, as something like AG5 is in between, because the clear visibility and the transparency is there for me as an employee to see, hey, what training am I still missing? What growth path is in place for me? What additional trainings can I do? Right. So those are all things that AG5 can take over and can really shine. On top of this, of course, you can always manage global skill and local skill requirements. So in AG5, there's a system that you can put into place where you have, for example, a global library for all the bigger companies here that shares the data into the local systems. Then on top of this, of course, there's always the customization ability for the local AG5 systems, if you have any local quirks you want to put into the system. However, then again, because the process itself is so streamlined and it's the same for everybody, even if local AG5 system would have some more local quirks than the global one, if the global admin looks at it, he can understand the data because the data itself looks the same. Yeah, with this being said, I think we have time for some Q&As. I saw there was already a little bit in chat, so that's why I was a little bit distracted. Every once in a while I saw questions popping up, but of course my colleagues answered those questions already, so that's really nice. I think Weiss already answered 1 or 2 questions in chat. He's joining me for the Q&A. So welcome to Weiss and Larissa. And yeah, post questions in the chat if you want and if you have, and we can answer those.
Stefan, maybe Sebastian, one of our viewers is asking, where do you do the matching of training and skills to be achieved with the training? And can a training lead do more than one skill? Maybe you can show them the prerequisites. I don't know if that one is turned on, but that is the place, basically, Sebastian, where you could link basically multiple skills and trainings to a skill to be achieved.
Yes, so this is a good question, Sebastian. Thank you for that. First, of course, where do you match training and skills to be achieved? First, maybe we want to have a look at the organizational structure where I was mentioning where you can build the requirements for a specific job role. In this case, it's based, of course, on the job role. But of course, you can customize this and say, hey, it's not only job roles, but also based on your work process or your machine or your production line. So you can create a grouping here, and then you can simply assign the skills that you have in your system here in your skills section that we created. You can just drag and drop them in, and then you can see, maybe let's open one that's a little bit less big so it's easier for an overview. So here, my handhaver, I can see that I have 3 employees here, and all those employees need to be trained in that specific skill. If I want to change this, I can just drag and drop skills into the org structure and can add those as additional requirements for those skills. So that's already super easy for you to maintain and to adjust. And the point that Wise just made about the prerequisites, we can go down here, prerequisite rules. So what that means, for example, here in line 10 oven, there's one in. We say for that specific skill, line 10 oven, and that is a skill that we created here, we want to make this as a prerequisite. So for this skill to be achieved for you, and this means this is automatically achieved, you need to be have training in all those skills. So that's actually an existing org structure, existing structure in that skill management that we can say, what other skills do you need to achieve first for this skill to automatically be going as achieved. And if I look at that skill here, I can see here the skill level. You can already here see that little icon, which means there's prerequisites. I can open this one up, and then it says the dependency here. This skill will be auto-achieved as soon as those other skills are also achieved. Right, so this is really easy for you to make the different, yeah, exactly. You know, Sebastian just posted, so it's like a skill hierarchy. Yes, that's pretty much what it is. You can say which skills are a prerequisite for that specific skill. Yes. I hope that answered your question, Sebastian. Nice. Okay. Question was answered. That's of course good to hear. And if there are any other questions in the chat, please let us know. And there's a question coming from another participant. Can AG5 help to standardize training across multiple sites or location? Yes, of course, because this is the whole point of software like AG5, right? So everybody is using the same software. So the training across multiple sites will be standardized. You can say, for example, everybody that's using the same job roles needs to have the same training. Everybody who's using the same skill hierarchy that we just saw needs to have the same training, right? So this is something that where we can standardize this whole. We can, even though we can create those little bubbles where we can say you can only see a specific part of the system, we can still make sure that the base data that they need is the same. And then on top of that, if it's like a really big global player and you want to have like a huge skill library globally, then we can also create a system that shares that global library to all of the local repositories, the local AG5 systems. So we can say, yeah, it's a standardized skill library, a standardized set of requirements that we have that will be shared globally. And then on top of that, if there are some more local quirks, you can still adjust them into the system. But yes, I hope this answers your question. Otherwise, please let me know. Okay, there's a new question coming in. How does AG5 ensure adoption across departments with different training needs? That's actually a really good question, and also goes back a little bit more to the one beforehand about the standardized approach in AG5. Most of the time, what keeps people from using a new software, keeps using a new process, if it's just too complicated, or if it's just too many different processes that need to be, or rules that need to be followed, right? But if there's one standardized process across all platforms for everybody involved, this ensures that the adoption rate is so much higher because it's easy to understand. You have easy steps to follow. We have also, of course, the training that you get during the onboarding. You will have the slides and the trainings material that we share, so you can make sure that everybody understands how the system works, and this clearly helps the adoption for your workforce. Okay, question answered. That's nice. If there are no other questions coming in, let me see where we were. Q&A. I think we still have 1 or 2 minutes, so if any question is coming in, I will just get back to it. Otherwise, a few words here. You will of course get the slides afterwards. You can book an intro session for AG5. You can have you can play around actually in a system for you itself, where you can create a system, so you can see a little bit more like a hands-on experience. However, if you feel like you want to dive even deeper than that, then the standardized demo for you, where you can test the system, you can always of course also reach out to our sales department, and then they can set up a custom demo environment for you, where you can already share some data with us, and then we can make sure that the what you're looking at in AG5 is already your real data. Here's your last poll. Please let us know how you liked the webinar. Did you, how do you rate it overall? Do you think it was relevant for you? Did you maybe learn something new out of it? And yes, fill it out. It's always nice to hear for us what you think, because ultimately, of course, you want to make those webinars for you, and we want to make sure that they have value for you as a participant and that you learn something. I think this is the last slide. There's 1 minute left, so I think everybody can either send another question or you can go and get another coffee. It's also, at least here in the Netherlands, it's time for lunch almost. And thanks everybody for your time and for joining. Thank you for your attention, of course. And I hope maybe that I can see 1 or 2 of you in a future onboarding. Ideally, of course, every participant. And yes, have a nice day and maybe see you next time.